Hearings for this evening. Great. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for joining us this evening on this wonderful program. We have a discussion on the theme of the book, which is titled Leaders in the Making, the Crucibles of Change Makers in HR. So we have a lot of participants here. Some of them are students as well. We have members from NIPM, NHRD, and ISTD, besides, of course, the executives from Adrenalin and all the guest speakers of the day. So we just have a couple of minutes to go, as some of them are still having their last sip of tea possibly. And I also welcome all the viewers who have joined us online. Professor T.V. Rao, he's also joined online. Professor, good evening. Professor T.V. Rao.
Good evening. Good evening.
Yes,
good evening. You're audible.
Fantastic to see you, sir.
Yes,
Great,
nice.
great. Thank
Nice
you so
to
much
see
for
you all.
joining. Thank you, sir. So as we still have about a minute or so to go, just a couple of events of MMA, which I thought I'll tell you in case you missed it. And for other members as well, members of other organizations, in case you're keen to join this program, please do let us know. On the 12th, we have the R.K. Swamy Memorial Lecture. Dr. Palnivar Tyagarajan is the Honorable Minister of Finance and HR, Tamil Nadu. He is joining us, along with Dr. N. Gopalaswamy, former Chief Election Commissioner, and Mr. P. Unnikrishnan, former Managing Director, Bini Group. Then on the 14th, 2 days after that, we have Global Automotive Regulations, an overview at Chengalpattu. We are joined by Dr. Bhaskar Ramurthy, the former Director of IIT Madras, and Mr. V. Shankar, founder CAMS. Of course, there are a whole lot of programs, but I'll just tell you one or two more by the time others will walk in as well. We have this discussion on the theme of the book, Service Uninterrupted. And we are joined by Mr. M.M. Rajendran, author and former governor of Orissa. Then we have Honorable Mr. Justice R. Suresh Kumar joining us that day, along with Mr. T.V. Somanathan, IAS, who is current Finance Secretary, Government of India, along with Mr. Nawab H.H., His Highness Nawab Muhammad Abdul Ali, the Prince of Our Court, Chennai, Ms. Malika Srinivasan, Chairman and CEO of TAFE, and Mr. P. Shankar, IAS retired, former Chief Secretary, Tamil Nadu. So this is the panel that will be discussing the book on the 16th of December. And one more event before I start with today's proceedings. And don't miss event also on the 19th of December. We have this event which is on geopolitics, managing national defense post-1962. So Air Marshal Matheshwaran, AVSM VM, he's the founder and president of the Peninsula Foundation. He's being joined by Mr. V. Balamurugan, outstanding scientist, director, Combat Vehicle Research and Development, which is called CVRD at Avadi, Dr. Stanley Jones, International Affairs Editor, The Hindu, and Mr. Satyamurthy, Convener, Policy Matters, Chennai. Whole lot of other programs are there lined up until January for all of you. So kindly look at your mailboxes, and anybody who's missed the mail, please do give us a call, and we'll be happy to invite all of you here, even from the other forums. Right, coming back to the event today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an excellent panel to discuss this wonderful book called The Leaders in the Making, the Crucibles of Chronicle Makers, Change Makers in HR. I'm sorry. May I invite the panel to take their place on the dais, please. Let me welcome Mr. Surya Prakash, Honorary Secretary MMA, Mr. Lionel Paul David, Honorary President NHRD Chennai Chapter, author of the book, Dr. Arvind N Agrawal, Professor T.V. Rao, who has joined us online all the way from Mumbai. Sir, please come over. Please come. Mr. Sridhar Ganesh, Leadership Development Mentor and Executive Coach. Mr. Sridhar. Mr. S.V. Nathan, Partner and Talent Officer, Deloitte, South Asia. And of course, Ms. Vijayalakshmi. Please come back. Ladies and gentlemen, the panel deserves a round of applause. So a little later in the day, I'll invite Dr. Raghavi from Honorary Secretary ISTD. She is here, and Mr. Matthew Gunaseelan from NIPM, Honorary Secretary NIPM here. They will also join me on the dais a little later. So Let me begin the proceedings by inviting Mr. Surya Prakash, Honorary Secretary MMA, Executive Director, Punpure Chemicals, to deliver the welcome address. Mr. Surya Prakash is a second-generation entrepreneur, an alumni of BITS Pilani, and Executive Director who transformed Punpure Chemicals, a group from one of the largest chemical distribution firms in India, to a global company through innovation, research, and product development as its core competencies. With an annual turnover of 2,500 crores, it is remarkable that with over 800 employees, the company ranks top on Great Places to Work survey every year. Thank you, Mr. Surya Prakash, for joining us. May I request you to deliver the welcome address.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure and honor to deliver the formal welcome address at this exclusive discussion on theme of the book, Leaders in Making, the Crucibles of Change Makers in HR, organized jointly by NHRD, NIPM, and ISTD past partners. I also want to convey my heartfelt thanks to Mr. Srinivasa Bharati for Managing Director to hosting this event. I consider it a privilege to welcome this evening Mr. Dr. Arvind N Agrawal, Managing Director, Lead Associate, former President, NHRD, Professor T.V. Rao, Chairman, T.V. Rao Learning Systems, who has joined online, and Mr. S.V. Nathan, Partner and Chief Talent Officer, Deloitte, South Asia, and National President, NHRD. Ms. S. Vijayalakshmi, MCC, MP, Master Coach and Mentor. Mr. Sridhar Ganesh, Leadership Development, Mentor and Executive Coach. Mr. Lionel Paul David, Honorary President, NHRD, Chennai Chapter. Mr. J. Vijay Kumar, Chairman, ISTD and Chennai Chapter. And finally, Mr. T.A. Matthew Gunaseelan, Secretary, NIPM, Madras Chapter. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome members of MMA from all over Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry, invitees and guests from Adrenalin, NHRD, NIPM, IST, and large number of participants from all over the country who have joined us online. Since there are many guests joined this evening from other organizations, I thought we'll brief a little bit about MMA. MMA is established in 1956 with the aim of propagating management movement in this part of the country over the years. And over the years, MMA has evolved into largest management association in India with over 8,000 members and organizing over 750 events a year. MMA has been adjudged the best management association in India for the last 13 years in a row by All India Management Association in recognition of its phenomenal contribution through numerous activities of management, professional, entrepreneurs, students, and public at large. Today, this evening, we have gathered for exclusive discussion on the book, Leaders in Making, the Crucibles of Change Makers in HR, authored by two stalwarts in the HR domain, Professor T.V. Rao and Dr. Arvind Agrawal. The authors have taken a painstaking effort in interacting with over 30 HR leaders, both from public and private sectors, and collecting various inflection points drawn from both their personal and professional lives. And this makes this book also unique and invaluable. The book brings about a lot of interesting anecdotes, challenges faced, major influences and lessons learned by senior HR professionals. I'm sure the readers, particularly the young HR professionals, are in for a lifetime transformative learning experience as they read through this book. As regard to others, I'm sure there are many instances which reflects their own life experiences. I think post-pandemic, as organization, we read in news lot of challenges posed, like great resignation we had after COVID, great resignation. Then we had a concept called moonlighting. Then we had something called work from home addiction, people are not returning back to work. Then gig working blues and massive layoffs, and now recently massive layoffs by global players. As an entrepreneur, as an HR professional, we are definitely in the cups of interesting times, and for which I'm sure this book will have many answers. I look forward to the discussion as a distinguished speaker who could possibly provide greater insights and strategies for dealing with the current scenarios to retain the strategic relevance of HRM in this competitive world. I once again take this opportunity to thank all the partners and Conrad Adnier Stip Tank for their continued support. I once again welcome all the distinguished delegates, thousands of viewers from all over the globe watching this program live through MMA and various social media portals. Wish you a great evening and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Surya Prakash. We have the Honorary President, NHRD Chennai chapter, to deliver the introductory remarks. Lionel is the workforce head and HR business advisor for the APAC region at Stellantis, a global automotive OEM with over 150 billion euros in revenues and 4 lakh plus workforce. He gets excited about opportunities to add value to business by creating great people experience at workplace. Thank you, Paul David, for joining us. I invite you to deliver the introductory remarks.
Good evening. I'm going to start off with a small story to set the context. There were about 70 people working in a team very hard, and they were working on a very critical project, and it was very hectic for all of them. And one of the team members walked to his manager in the morning and said, "Sir, I would like to leave by around 5 p.m. today because I've promised my children that I'll take them to this exhibition which is going to close today." And this manager approved. And around 8:30 p.m., he just realized that he got so engrossed in work that he missed his commitment to his children. And he was still in office. And he couldn't see his boss. Most of his co-workers also had left by then. So he kind of, with a guilty feeling, rushes home. And to his surprise, he's not finding his children also there. So he's asking his wife, "Where are the children?" His wife, with a very bemused look, asked him, "Don't you know? Your manager came here by 5:15 and took them to the exhibition." So the manager, seeing the employee is working very hard, at around 5 p.m., decided that this person is not going to leave work now. But if he's promised his children, they should definitely enjoy the exhibition. So he took it on himself, took the lead, took the children to the exhibition. Now, this manager was none other than Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. And this is one of the incidents that happened when he was a scientist. These impactful incidents make people role models. Dr. Agrawal's curiosity around role models and impactful HR leaders led to this whole quest of trying to understand what were their crucible experiences like, what were their inflection points, and what choices did they make to become who they became. So this book that he has penned along with Dr. T.V. Rao offers us a quick to grasp lessons for those of us who are looking for applications rather than research. In September this year, when Dr. T.V. Rao was physically with us here at a felicitation event in Chennai, he said, "As these cases are illustrative, they are by no means exclusive or exhaustive." He explained the pains of Dr. Arvind Agrawal to reduce the size of the manuscript by almost 1/4 to make it publishing worthy. And he was hoping that this work would inspire other people to pen down their own stories or get interviewed by others and get it written. Now, interestingly, we are joined by Nathan, who's just released his book, which is available on pre-orders, and Sridhar Ganesh, with whom we had a discussion sometime, I think last year, about his book. So we have a full panel of authors. I also recall Dr. T.V. Rao mentioning during his visit in September that as a country, we have an abundance of leadership talent that if we start looking around, we can identify and share a lot more stories. To set this context, I would like to pick one of the book reviews that I found something that I could connect with. So this is from our own Shantaram when he wrote for Hindu Business Line, his book review. He's written like this: all the 30 leaders profiled in this book are accessible through social media. But through their interviews with Dr. Agrawal and Dr. Rao, they reveal so much more about themselves than any series of 280 character posts that could offer you. So here is what I recommend to young HR professionals. He says, pick one chapter a day, understand about each of them one day at a time, then probably next day at work, reflect as to what if I was in their position, what if I was in their position, what is that I would do? Probably by end of 31 days, you'll find yourself having a very wide repertoire of responses that will launch you onto your own path of leadership stardom. I'm sure the conversation today and the book adds flavor to our leadership development journey. And along with each of you, I look forward to a wonderful evening. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Paul David, for setting the context with that wonderful story as well. This seems to be another change maker in HR, that person. Ladies and gentlemen, the much awaited moment. The book has already been released, launched. So many people have read and given their reviews. So, but it's today our pleasure at MMA to e-launch this book called Leaders in the Making, the Crucibles of Change Makers in HR. May I have the, right. Thank you. So I think this is a round of applause. Fantastic book that's been, yeah, great. Thank you so much. So to know more about this book, we have an exciting panel discussion, a fireside chat coming up. So the fireside chat will be led by Ms. Vijay Lakshmi, MCC, MP, Master Coach and Mentor. And the people who are joining the fireside chat are Dr. Arvind Agrawal, who's the Managing Partner, Lead Associates and former President NHRD, Professor T.V. Rao, Chairman T.V. Rao Learning Systems. Let me briefly introduce the guest speakers and then hand over the session to Ms. Vijay Lakshmi. Professor T.V. Rao, if you are a person from HR and if you are a student of HR, I'm sure I don't have to tell you all who he is, considered the guru of HR in India. Professor T.V. Rao is currently the Chairman, T.V. Rao Learning Solutions, and a former professor and board member of IIM Ahmedabad. He's also the founder president of the National HRD Network and has been at the forefront of HRD movement in this country. He's worked as a short-term consultant to UNESCO, Bangkok, USAID, Indonesia, UNIDO, Malaysia, and so many other international organizations. Thank you, Professor Rao, for joining us this evening. It's always an honor and a pleasure, privilege to welcome you to any program at MMA, though we will be missing your physical presence today here. Dr. Arvind Agrawal, Managing Partner, Lead Associates and former President in NHRD. Thank you, Mr. Arvind, for joining us at MMA this evening. He's a Master Certified Coach and a Leadership Consultant with experience as CEO and Head of Human Resources, Marketing, Business Strategy, and Total Quality in RPG Escorts and Xerox. Dr. Agrawal was awarded the National HRD Award by the National HRD Network in 1992 and served as its national president between 2000 and 2002. He's an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur and IIM Ahmedabad. Thank you so much, Dr. Arvind, for joining us this evening. And Ms. S. Vijay Lakshmi, who will be facilitating the session, the discussion fireside chat this evening. Vijay Lakshmi is a management consultant, master coach and mentor, MCC from International Coaching Federation, and MP from European Mentoring and Coaching Council. With over 20 years of industry experience across coaching, management, consulting, and human resources with a background in law. She is an accredited mediator. In coaching, she specializes in leadership, engagement, performance, conflict, careers, life purpose and vision, health and wellness, work-life integration, mentor coaching. Thank you so much, Ms. Vijayalakshmi, for joining us this evening. I think we will leave you and the authors of the book for this next fireside chat. And can others possibly enjoy the discussion from the first row? Professor Rao, is it audible to you, sir? The audio is okay?
Yeah, it's fine. Perfect.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's, I don't know what to say, the word pleasure or privilege, picking between the two, to really be here this evening. Because when I think I started, I would say my mid-career in HR, you know, the two names that I've heard of, yeah, the big guys, was of course Dr. Arvind Agrawal and Professor T.V. Rao. I mean, who wouldn't have heard of them? And this was like long time back, right? And I've hung up my HR boots for a while. And I think as luck would have it and destiny would have it, I was fortunate enough to get to know Dr. Agrawal after I switched gears into the coaching profession. And there again, Dr. Agrawal is held in such high esteem. And I was very fortunate to really get to know him, work with him. And I could say so much so that I think I can call you Arvind today. Thank you, Dr. Agrawal. And Professor Rao, I'm going to continue to call you Professor Rao because I think that's how the world knows you. Am I audible, Professor Rao? You can hear me well?
Yeah, you are. And most
Fantastic.
people call me TV.
TV? No, I don't think I can get to do that. So let me say Professor Rao. Okay, so I think we all know why we are here today. And I was, you know, I must say, approached by another HR leader who I hold in huge respect, Mr. Sridhar Ganesh, with this job of really having this conversation. At first I said, but I haven't read the book yet. Then he said, okay, time for you to read the book. So I ordered my copy and man, was I glad that I did. I really soaked myself in the book and I think one read will not do. As Paul mentioned, I think each of those stories, each of those life-changing narratives requires not one, but I think multiple reads. And some of the people, again, all HR leaders who I've had the fortune to know, and some of them who I can call friends, I can only say, wow, I didn't know this side of them. In fact, I picked up one of the stories there with another coaching friend of mine. And I picked up the phone and I said, I never knew this side of you. Then he said, so now you do. So I think if not anything, I think you just get to know the people who you hold in such high esteem, their human side, their humane side. And if I may, the same human and humane side of Arvind, you and Professor Rao. So it's been such an honor for me the last couple of days to really, I think, plow through the book. And why did I call it a tough task? Because I had 100 questions, honestly, after that, right? How do I, you know, place the most important ones in 40 minutes? I really don't know. So I hope somebody will give me a nudge on time because I think I can get carried away. And what I have done is also, you know, put down some questions so that I don't go completely free flow. And I'm just going to go with that list. Of course, we all know the name of the book, Leaders in the Making, The Crucibles of Change Makers in HR. And I think change makers is such a powerful term, isn't it? I mean, any change maker in society. And we're not just talking about leaders, we're talking about change makers. And I think that's the first thing that caught my attention. So Arvind, the first question to you, what was your vision for the book? And, you know, this is one which is a joint effort. So two co-authors means that perhaps you would have had two different visions, or did you intuitively share the same vision?
So Vijay, first of all, thank you so much for being here and also taking the effort to read the book and organize your thoughts in terms of questions you want to put. And good evening to all of you. It's a indeed great privilege for me to be here present in Chennai. Now, in terms of vision, to be honest, I didn't have any grand vision. I had just some childlike curiosity. I had rubbed shoulders with many, super professionals in HRD forums. And I used to always wonder, what are they really like? What has been their life journey? And I would love to write about it. And I also thought that since these are super professionals, their stories would be also inspiring for young professionals in their career journey. So this was the loose idea. This is as much as I had. And I was equally petrified with the daunting task of writing a book because I'd never written one. So I reached out to someone, none other but TV himself, who has, to his credit, more than 60 books.
Wow.
So I said, TV, this is my idea. And I'm going to embark upon it only if you hold hands. Otherwise, this is finished. This book is not even starting. So maybe, TV, you can add your perspective, what you thought of the proposition, and what did you think of this crazy idea that I brought to you at that moment?
Well, Arvind, when you called me up and said that you're interested in this, I was just at a stage of somewhat of a fatigue of writing books. The last book was Effective People, which dealt with everyone other than the corporate sector. So when you called me, and then we thought of some of the names, this was just a beginning kind of thing. We said we should go systematically and so on. I readily agreed. I took some time. I don't want to say I readily agreed. I think we almost took about a year discussing the possibilities, discussing about the criteria that should be used. Then I think we went ahead and recruited some summer trainees to identify criteria and identify people. Vijay, thank you for going through the book and for such wonderful questions. And the first question, if you're asking for any vision, I would think for a professor, teaching and learning continuously is the only vision I can think of. So I was looking for learning from these leaders and then passing on the knowledge. And that's what we are doing through this book. So that's as simple as that. Learn and disseminate. That's the kind of a vision, which is true with all my books.
And Vijay, that conversation was 7 years ago.
Wow.
So it took us a while to put our act in place. Long journey.
Yeah, so I feel I have a hope. So I must say, Paul, I'm not an author and I've not gone there, but I think I know who I can get mentored by if I do. Follow-up question there. And both of you can take this. If you were to highlight the essence of this 462-page book, I mean, it's not a small book and it's quite heavy. I wish I could have gotten my copy along. In perhaps 4 to 5 lines.
Oops. Publisher gave us hard time when they saw the manuscript. And we had to really edit it down to the size that you currently see in your hand. And now you're telling me that I should give you the essence in 5 lines, 4 or 5 lines. Okay, so let's shoot. And TV, please help me. I have not succeeded until now to do this kind of editing. But essentially, what the book shows that whosoever we are, we have been touched in our lives by a lot of people in our journey. Parents, friends, our teachers, our bosses, even professional bodies like this. And that's how we have become who we have become, whosoever we are, all of you present in this hall today. So the book is all about what are those experiences in the life journey? How have you been impacted by who, in what moments, what were those points of inflections, what choices you made to become who you have become. So it's a story, a real story, as you have begun to read, you recognize that, of the real people. And like I'm struggling at this moment to summarize, we equally struggled because each of these stories, you would be surprised, many of them ran into 80, 90 pages because we had long interviews of good 6-7 hours. Both Nathan and Sridhar are sitting here. They have to bear me along with TV for 6-7 hours. And they were patient. But once we documented what was written, it was 70, 80 pages each. So just multiply that by 30. So that's the volume of data that we had, and we had to really massage it down to these few lines.
Yeah.
But TV, help me if you could give it a shot as to how to summarize in 4 or 5 lines. I've just said what I could.
Yeah, well, actually, it's difficult, but since Vijay, you asked us to summarize, I would say the first lesson is leaders make themselves. Leaders make themselves by learning from various other people and experiencing both positive and negative crucible experiences. I think I must acknowledge it is Arvind's idea of crucibles. I think we at TVRLS use Warren Bennis' articles, Crucibles of Leadership, quite frequently, but it was only when Arvind mentioned that he wants to, actually he started up by saying baking of HR leaders, which I was very impressed with that particular title. So baking and crucibles are the two things. So when I say leaders make themselves, they convert each crucible into an experience, learn not to repeat mistakes or learn from mistakes, learn from good things and things of that nature. So each one uses other people, other experiences, which includes, I think, family as a source of learning, which they would only acknowledge much later. At the time you are a child, you don't even understand what you're going through. But later, when somebody like us interviews and then says, "Now, can you recollect some of the crucible experiences in your childhood?" And you start talking about the kind of experiences you have with your parents, whether they disciplined, taught values, and things of that kind. So how parents impacted you, how your institutions where you studied, schools and colleges impacted you. One remarkable thing we discovered is that teachers, more than what they teach in the class, what the way they treat the students outside the class, connect with them, etc. I think that makes a lot of impact. And that is a big lesson. And then the bosses largely have positive impact, but there are bosses who also taught people how not to be, which is a very interesting kind of thing. So you also learn from bad bosses, right? When I become, I think something, I don't want to be like him or her and things of that kind. So I think this is the other thing. I think another important lesson, which I think we will talk at some point of time, is what we thought is not HR has really stood out as HR, and that is the industrial relations, the kind of experiences these leaders talk about, which I'm sure at a later point, Arvind will talk about. So I think to summarize it, leaders make themselves using various other sources as learning, people, experiences and so on, bosses, teachers, seniors, first job, second job, all those kind of things. And then I think the last thing, lesson from this is once I think nobody designates them as leader. But once you assume that leadership position, you start contributing in a big way to the society. The first people start asking the question, how do I make a difference in the lives of others? Not only those who work with me, but in the society. That was a big kind of a lesson that we have drawn. Leadership is not merely impacting people in your organization, but people around you and so on. I think these are a few points, but I'm sure readers will go through a number of lessons. As you know, there are about 14 different categories of lessons that we have drawn in this.
Sure. Thank you, Professor Rao. And that was just my next question, right? Because these two words, the two words that hit you when you go through the book, one is a word that keeps getting repeated, which is crucible. And the other word that actually caught my sweet tooth was baking. Right. So I'm just wondering, was there anything beyond there, Arvind? Because Professor Rao has mentioned you actually came out, with that orientation.
So some years ago, I read work by Warren Bennis and Robert Thomas. He talked about crucible of leadership, that how leaders are made through crucible of experiences that they go through in their life journey. So that somewhere resonated with me. And I said, it will be great to discover what crucible of experiences HR legends have gone through. So that was our inquiry, actually. And crucible, as you know, in the medieval time, the alchemist used a vessel to convert metal into gold. And that was not an easy process. So likewise, when you go through the life experiences, in the moment, it may be violent, unpleasant. Sometimes it may be very positive experience. You go through it. But much later, when you look back, you realize the importance of it and the lasting impact it has left in you. That's the shaping of the personality, the character, the mind of the person. So that connected well with both TV and myself, and we said, that's the line of inquiry that we will pursue. So in fact, once we had heard the stories, what we did is, from this story, we cherry-picked what were the crucible moments, what were the crucible experiences. We just written it down in the Word, in the computer. Then we said, okay, let's see from these crucible experiences, what lessons can we learn? What values have been demonstrated? What competencies have been demonstrated? So that was the analysis of the crucible experiences. So that's the process we went through in organizing the book.
And I think this is for a message for each one of us here that, sometimes when the going is really tough, I think most of us are working professionals here, students included. It's okay to, I think, just plow through and embrace those negative along with positive experience. I think, did we lose Professor Rao?
I think we may have
No,
lost Professor Rao.
I'm able to. I'm listening. And
okay. We're not able to see you on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So
no problem. Let's continue. So
Yes.
I think that's the message, ladies and gentlemen, that, and I think even the last 3 years of the pandemic has been a huge, I think, global crucible experience in one way or the other for all of us. I think hopefully all of us, humanity has emerged better. Arvind, the next one for you. You have featured 30 impactful, inspiring, and heartwarming narratives of HRLs, that is the HR leaders, 2 of whom are here today, based on 6 to 10 hours of deep conversations. If you were to pick one learning from that process, for you personally as a leader, what would that be, and as an author?
So it was overwhelming experience for me personally. Firstly, most of the 30 people I had known personally over the passage of my own personal growth journey. But in the process of actually talking to them over this long 6-7 hours, I realized how little I actually knew them. Very little, not more than 10-20%. It's typically, you would say, tip of the iceberg is what I knew. So the great gift that I'm carrying from this is getting to know the 30 people so closely. That itself is one overwhelming experience. And the second is, I would also say my deepest gratitude, because none of them actually asked me a question. They were unconditionally responding to my questions. They were unconditionally giving me time, whether it was the weekend, whether it was in-person meeting, whether it was in Zoom call. So simply I'm overwhelmed, and the book would be incomplete, will not even be there if I did not get that overwhelming support from each of these 30 people. So
Yeah.
really I'm personally moved to see that kind of overwhelming support.
I can sense that, Arvind, and probably it's also an indication of the kind of friendship and equity that you enjoy, in the industry with all these, veteran HR leaders.
Yeah. And I must acknowledge that that weighed very heavily on my shoulders, because these were
Yeah.
HR legends who have given me so much in terms of information. And how do I make some sense out of that to present it? Because you cannot present these stories twice. It has to be right the first time.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of the content, in terms of the look and feel, and it has to be a class befitting the stature each one of those 30 enjoyed. So that heavily weighed on my shoulders, and I was privileged that I had TV Rao assuring me alongside all the time.
Thank you. The next one is, Professor Rao, you could take this one. In chapter 3, which was very nicely titled Baking of Leaders, Crucible Experiences, you have identified the settings or contexts of these experiences and presented them in 14 categories, ranging from family to volunteering to social causes. Could you talk us a little bit through some interesting revelations as you put together those categories of experiences?
Well, I think if we go, can you hear me?
Yeah, very well.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. If you go sequentially, first, I think dealing with the childhood and parents, I think we have had leaders who were born in a variety of with backgrounds, some from very relatively poor families with, let's say in one of the cases, father being absent, in another case, traveling abroad and things of that kind, and others in pretty well-to-do families. So one lesson is, it doesn't matter what family you're born in, but it matters what kind of values, what kind of examples, what kind of socialization parents have given you, even in difficult times, the kind of conditions that they have set up. Second is the impact of teachers and the schools and colleges. Again, I think we have leaders who have come from top institutions like IIM Ahmedabad, XLR, ITIS. But we also have leaders who have studied in not so well-known institutions, but still made it big. But having said that, I think it is not the institution itself, it is some of the faculty in the institutions who seem to matter. Our leaders recall, some of the leaders recall even today, the kind of impact some of the faculty have had on them. And very interesting incidents, both in the school as well as in the college. So if one of the professors gives an assignment or a project where they are asked to go and work with the poor or with the labor or with study the beggars and things of that nature, it leaves a great kind of an impact on the part of the leader. So I think faculty, other teachers make a phenomenal kind of an impact. Third, I think lesson that one can see is the importance of the first job. Sometimes some of them get very routine kind of tasks, but they have gotten the best out of it. Like if you're asked to maintain attendance of people, or if you're asked to look at the employee records and things of that nature, how the person, of course, the person may have realized it much later, but the person just didn't treat it merely as a routine job, but as a way of understanding that environment. So if you have to maintain attendance register or employee records, that is the best way to know the entire organization, which many other people may not have that. So first job, the way again you are treated and so on, I think seem to have quite a bit of an impact. And bosses who mentored, understood you, also make an impact. One of the things that we discovered in this is that as I mentioned earlier, the people who handled industrial relations seem to have learned a hell of a lot in the early part of their life, which we were discounting earlier. In fact, many times I have said HRD is separate from industrial relations. I use it to say HRM is equal to industrial relations plus personal management plus HRD. But today, I think I have come to the conclusion that all the three are integrated. There is no HRD without both IR as well as personal management and so on. This is, I think, this is a conviction conceptually existed before, but that comes as a very interesting kind of a conviction here. I can go on with this, but I think one important thing that I must mention as a lesson out of these 14 experiences is their contributions to professional bodies. Most of them we have known from National HRD Network, ISTD, NIPM, and so on. A lot more with the National HRD Network, the kind of leadership roles they have done, either as presidents of network or of the chapters, or even if you are not a president, as a person who led, like in the case of one person who conceptualized entire leadership development initiative in HRD network and went on doing it and things like that, and contribution to social causes. I think I don't want to go into all these 14 things, but these are some of the very interesting lessons. I think anyone who reads this particular chapter, I think gets a lot of insights from all these 30 leaders.
Yeah,
Arvind might want to add something.
Well, I would add only one additional thread that we picked up, apart from everything that PV has already said, and that is the power of immersive business experience.
Mm-hmm.
So we found out of 30, there were 17 people who had accountable business role at some phase in their career. Either they would have come from business role into human resource, or they would have gone from human resource to business. And listening to these stories, Professor Rao already mentioned about the importance of industrial relations, importance of business experience equally come out very strongly. So my message is very clear that if people are building their career in the HR profession, they should definitely look for industrial relation experience. They should equally look for some business stint if they can.
Sure. I hope, people who are building their HR careers are listening to this. I think Arvind himself, you have great experience in marketing as well, right?
Yes, I moved into marketing.
Yeah.
I ran into company as a CEO. So yes, come full circle.
Sure.
Thank you.
Wonderful. My next question is, let's move to competencies, because I know there is a full chapter, and that's a great chapter to read because, in B school or in our jobs, we're often talking about competencies, but I think the way competencies have been treated in this book is quite refreshing. And my question is, what were the surprises or revelations here in what you have narrated as HRL competencies? And were there any surprises from, typically well-known HR competencies?
So two things. Firstly, our approach was very unique because mostly around the world, when people do any competency mapping, they would do behavioral interviews.
Right.
And from that, they conclude these are the competencies. Our approach was that from the stories of HR legends, we have culled out what the competencies are.
Mm-hmm.
So that approach is unique. And to our surprise, the finding resonated well with very popular competency models of human resource, whether it's a SHRM, whether it's a CIPD of UK, whether it is Dave Woolrich model, whether National HRD Network's own model, HR Escape, it aligns very well. Only one new dimension which came up, which we don't largely find across other models, is the social relationship. So social relations, the importance of that in terms of being mindful of larger causes, giving back to the society, making difference in the lives of other people, those aspects came very prominently right through the 30 stories. So that is unique. I don't find them, TV can correct me, supplement me. That feature is not there in most of the HR competency model. TV, you have a comment to make on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the socially conscious leadership is something which comes out. The only thing that I'm going beyond the book. I still remember, Arvind, I have not mentioned this to you, when you were president of National HRD Network, there was a conference of the HRD Network in Hyderabad. In the Hyderabad conference, when I was given a few minutes to speak, I said, I would strongly recommend every HR manager to take some time off every year and work with an NGO or work for a social cause. I think in many such conferences, I kept on repeating this. What was a little bit of a surprise, since Vijay, you asked any surprise, was why is it that, except there are a couple of leaders, there are some of them who were from earlier stages, were very socially conscious, that one has to wait till you become, you come to your 50s or 60s to get to be socially, not more socially conscious and so on. So while the positive side is that they have all become socially conscious, are working for social causes, I wish the future leaders do it much earlier in their life. The other most interesting competence, I think, which comes out very powerfully is their integrating ability. In fact, I would call them not merely as HR leaders. They are leaders in their own right. They may carry the title of HR. Many of them, I think, have handled with ease because of their HR background or HR orientation, the line jobs. Like if you look at people like Anil Khandelwal or Santrupt Mishra, Arvind himself, as an author, he was CEO of an organization. Then people like Raghu Krishnamurthy. Even if you look at Nathan, who is sitting there, or Sridhar, who is sitting there, I think they are not mere, they are a lot beyond HR leaders. They are leaders in the true sense, that they have an ability to integrate, as Arvind mentioned, business with larger causes, put things in a larger perspective, talk of the contemporary issues like work and its meaning, life and its meaning. I'm sure as a coach, you will appreciate this kind of a thing. So this is something which is striking in these leaders. Maybe we have not, we probably have not highlighted that much because we are overwhelmed by a number of other kind of things. But this is something which is ability to integrate is a very, very interesting kind of competence that we have found. Yeah.
Sure. I've just got a nudge on time. Thank you so much for that. Perhaps two last questions. And I can't skip this one on values, because that's the one that resonated so deeply with me. Because I think values is what makes us not just as leaders, as humans first. And again, Arvind, maybe you can take a stab at this.
Yeah, sure.
What were these HRL values that stood out? If you could maybe call out top 3 to 5.
So we did a count of that, and it's featured in the book, but some top ones which come up is trustworthiness, having trusting relationship and trusting people. Second comes out integrity, and authenticity goes along with it. Respect for people, that comes out very strongly. Then comes the connecting, that they are people who are always connecting with others, and respectfully so. TV, you want to add to this list? The list is pretty long actually, but I'm only sharing the top ones.
Well, the chapter is short, so I'm sure they can read. Octopus values: openness, collaboration, trustworthiness, proactivity, confrontation, experimentation. I think we started with a little bit of a framework, and then we started examining if these are demonstrated. That's where the whole thing is. So what you say is perfect, Arvind. I think their trustworthiness and character, I think, is a very, very important kind of a value.
And you know, that's why good HR people are hard to find, because how do you find people with all these values?
And when you find them, you keep them, right?
So,
Sure. So, TV, this one is for you. And one of the limitations of the book you have acknowledged is the number of women HRLs who are featured there. You know, I think 2 out of 30. My question is there a larger issue out there that we need to acknowledge as professional bodies, as an industry?
Well, larger issues to be acknowledged are always there. We have moved a great deal, but we still have a long way to go. But the secret behind this, actually, we realized it only after we completed the book. Now, how come? We had actually 3, but one of them was writing her own book. She said she wanted to be excused and so on. But even that is a small. Just about a couple of days ago, we had a review of the Ahmedabad 1982 batch. 1982 batch, after 40 years of coming here, and out of about 100 of them, nearly about 100 of them who came, there are only about 7 or 8 women. Now, this speaks something about what was happening between 1982 and 2022. Particularly if you look at between 1982 and 2002, by which time I think you would have already been classified as a leader according to some of our criteria, or 2017 if you look at it. I think the age group is one. But if you really look at what happened in the last 4 or 5 years, I think the number of women leaders have excelled, at least in HR. All that you need to do is to count the amount of literature that has come up, which I'm so happy to see that. So because of this, what Arvind and I have done was we have started encouraging some people, and we're happy to see that a group of them in Bangalore have volunteered to undertake the task of writing the next part of this book on women leaders. Of course, they're not excluding men at this point of time. I think they still have to do this. So one of the IIM Bangalore professor and another person who has started emotional ethics, I'm sure you know all of them, Annapurna and Vasanthi Srinivasan and 2 others. They're going to do that, and we are both of us are hoping that this will be there soon. But we also think that leadership should not be limited to any gender. I think it should go particularly for age groups. Like, I think I'm so happy that Madras Management Association's president seemed to be a very young entrepreneur who initiated this. And we would like to study leadership of the generation between 25 to 40. What is the way in which we can inculcate this and things of that kind. So, I mean, these are all, I don't say, I mean, these are somewhat of a gaps, and I hope in the next few years, there will be many more. Maybe some people from the audience can pick up any one sector and start working on making of leaders in that particular sector, be it NGOs, be it middle age or women or any other sectors and so on. This is what I think.
I think you've just led and shown the way, and there's so much more we can do with the framework of this book. I had a question on the sequel, but I'll skip it for now because I can already sense there's going to be a lot of micro versions of this book that's going to happen. Last one, your author experience as you wrap up in one word.
Well, it's been overwhelming experience, to say the least. It's been a long journey, but very rewarding and truly fulfilling. Yeah.
Thanks, Arvind. Professor Rao, your author experience in a word.
Well, happy. I'm so excited that I have been able to work with Arvind, who has actually interviewed a large number of these people. It's a great combination of both a practitioner and a professor who conceptualizes. I think this book is a good example of how do you learn from others. So I would put it, teach to lead. All leaders are teachers. So if you want to be a teacher, you have to learn from others, teach, and then lead. So it's quite an exciting journey for both of us.
It seems like, and having read the book, I can certainly say it's very exciting for the reader. And like I said, it definitely will require multiple reads. I just want to round up because, I mean, we can have this conversation for a couple of hours more, I'm sure, but in the interest of time, I think the one thought that struck me after listening to both of you today, as well as having gone through the book, is I'd probably even drop the word HR from the cover of the book, because I think this is so universally applicable for leaders, irrespective of industry, function, background, geography. The principles, are so first principles. And so I think there is a lot out there, whether you are in HR or not. I think there's a lot one can read and feel inspired. Urge all of you to pick up your copy. And thank you so much, Arvind and Professor Rao, for indulging my questions. And if there's something that I did not cover that was material, please, my apologies for that.
Well, thank you, Vijay. And the book is out there, so everything is. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. I think it's very nice interacting with you. Thanks a lot.
Once. No, not yet. The Q&A is not yet open. One second. Thank you. It's very rare that, people of this eminence co-author a book, both of you. I think it's going to be a treatise for all the readers. Thanks for this joining this evening, Professor Rao, all the way from Mumbai. And thank you, Dr. Arvind. I know you're going to stay back. Thanks, Ms. Vijayalakshmi, for so nicely, leading this conversation. A lot of insights have come out from this book, from the way you try to get the information. I'm sure the audience out here is more excited to get a copy and read the book as well. So now we're going to the next part of this evening. I thank Ms. Vijayalakshmi for joining us. And I request Dr. Arvind to stay on as I invite Mr. Sridhar Ganesh and Mr. S.V. Nathan on to the stage for the next part of the discussion. And Professor Rao, you may also like to stay on for some more time if time permits. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the guest speakers with a round of applause. So as my team arranges the chairs for them, may I just go over their profiles very briefly. Sridhar Ganesh is a chairperson of the Management Development Center for Loyola Institute of Business Administration in Chennai. He is a graduate in physics and holds a postgraduate diploma in management from IIM Kolkata. Has over 40 years of experience in varied facets of human resource management. Retired in 2003 as the Director HR and Lead Director for the Diversified Businesses of the Murugappa Group, and a member of the Murugappa Corporate Board, the highest strategy and policy making committee of the $4 billion USD conglomerate. So prior to joining this group, he was the Director of Learning and Development at Cadbury Schweppes, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Then we have Mr. S.V. Nathan. Nathan, currently the Partner and Chief Talent Officer of Deloitte India. He is a member of the India leadership team and serves on the talent executive leadership of Asia Pacific region. Comes with over 30 years of experience in HR management across diverse industries, including manufacturing services, telecom, and information technology. Without further ado, may I request Dr. Arvind to lead the conversation with both the distinguished speakers.
All right, thank you, Group Captain. It's indeed a privilege once again, Sridhar and Nathan. I've had numerous hours with both of you, but the ocean that is underneath all the entire life journey that you represent, it's whatever time I have spent with you is insufficient. And of course, the time we today have is grossly insufficient. But still, I would put forward some questions for the benefit of all of us. So let me begin with you, Sridhar. And
I'm getting nervous.
You're getting nervous. Okay, that's completely out of character so far as Sridhar is concerned. And some of you in Chennai would know him well. So you were a Calcutta boy and you were going through very prestigious St. Xavier College. But you mentioned that you were very much influenced by French-Belgian Jesuits. So tell us more, what has been the influence of the people you met in St. Xavier?
I think I was very fortunate. I studied in a...
It's not open yet. I think you will have to switch it on. If you move the logo down. Yep. That's it.
Thank you. So I was very fortunate. I studied in a local Tamil society school.
Right.
And then I moved on to St. Xavier's to do my physics.
Mhm.
And I think to answer your question, what impressed me about these Jesuits were they were very simple, extremely humble,
Right.
but tons and tons of knowledge and hugely committed to their cause. And they would go to any extent to help a student. For example, in my case, there are some books on subjects like heat and electricity, which are extremely unaffordable for me. They would, from their personal library, lend it to you and say the only condition was, please make sure that you return it to me.
I see.
So I think you can't have more simpler terms than that.
Wonderful.
Some help and being so supportive.
Right, right. And you equally talk about the influence you've had of other teachers as you grew further in your education. And you went to IIM Calcutta, actually. And IIM Calcutta is as good as it gets in terms of academic institution of those days and even today. And you had all the choices. What made you choose human resource as a profession? You could have been in marketing, you could have been in finance, you could have been in manufacturing.
I have a small bone to pick first. Professor Rao mentioned every institute as a leading institute and forgot IIM Calcutta. I don't think that is fair. We believe we are the most premier institute in the country and perhaps in the world.
Right.
And those who exist at the banks of the river Sabarmati, where water never runs, are perhaps in the second or third run, forgetting those near the steel city. So that is my direct sort of a response to Professor Rao. Coming to your question again, I think I was enamored by two things. One, the quality of my teachers. They were all stalwarts in terms of practicing consultants, practitioners, and those days it was not even called HR, it was called personnel management, industrial relations. So I think these are people who were extremely knowledgeable, who were leaders in terms of thought, in terms of people sciences. And I honestly was enamored by what they had to tell us. And the science of psychology and people science, which are beginning at that stage, with people like Edgar Schein and Bennis and so on, McGregor, I think fascinated me. And I said, look, this is something that I can relate to, and it sort of touches me, and therefore I would like to take this up as my career. That's how I made the choice. I know that HR was relatively unknown, but if you ask me this question, would you take up HR again? I would say yes.
Yeah, and that should dispel the myth that when you don't have any other choice, people go for HR. Far from it.
Not in my case.
Yeah, and turning to you, Nathan, and you studied in a steel city, XLRI, and in fact, I'm forgetting the count, but out of 30 HR leaders, if there's one academic institution from where majority of them have come, and that is XLRI. I think at least about 10 of them, nearly 10 of them have come from XLRI. So there is something in that institute, obscure place, Jamshedpur, but it seemed to have produced large number of HR legends. What are some of your impressions? What are Ved Vakyam that you learned from XLRI?
I would just, first of all, for people in this room, thank you so much for staying back to listen to all of us. A big thank you, because for me, people like your good selves we're at a rung which is far, far higher. And to share the stage with you is a privilege beyond compare. So thank you.
Thank you.
To MMA, I would say again, a very big thanks, because my late father once was here. Perhaps he must have been on a stage as well.
I see.
And very fondly, I was moving from one city to another. I found a plaque and that read MMA. And I said, one day I must go to this place to just check this place out. And lo and behold, within about another 20 days, I'm out here. So thank you for this. I think Excel is a great place. It teaches you three things. One, service before self. So I think anybody who is from Excel will always think about another Exceller. I was telling somebody this evening that blood is thicker than water. Excel is thicker than blood. So that's the first thing that I learned. The second thing that you learn in Excel is, I think most of the professors that we had, they drilled in a sense of values without seemingly so. They won't say, you should do this and you should do that. And so that's the second thing that I learned. The third one is industry. You have to work very hard, very hard. And so these three things you put together.
Yeah.
And I think those are the few things that I learned.
Yeah. And if you were to think about one or two impactful teachers from whom you really learned something which even today you remember and apply in your profession.
So there was a professor, a very old lady. She's a very boring lady. Her name was Nilima Acharya. So Professor Nilima Acharya would come in. She would teach law to us.
Okay.
And law was, oh my God, it's not a, and she used to teach industrial relations. And we used to be bored to death. But I remember once she made the statement, every management gets the union it deserves. I'll repeat that.
Okay.
Every management gets the union it deserves. And I freely translated that to many walks in my life. You get what you deserve because of what you can do. So I think that was a very, very powerful statement for me. Every management gets the union it deserves. You. So that was one. There was another professor who was Professor Gangopadhyay, and he was all about statistics. Now, statistics is not an easy subject, and I was a student of mathematics. And Gangs was, he was a cerebral professor. But he would grant it. I remember there was one student who was in our class who was a very brainy guy called Subbu. Now, Subbu could not speak English to save his soul, but he was very good in mathematics. And so he came up and the professor was writing something. He said, excuse me, please. And he walked up to the board and then he turned the entire table. It was an inverse of a matrix. And I don't want to bore you with the details, but it was very complicated mathematics out there. And he did that. And immediately the professor stopped him and he said, Subbu, you now get an A. You don't have to attend any of my classes. But if you want an A+, you write the exam. Subbu never came to the class again. But I remember that as if it happened yesterday, because sometimes we just overbake things. If there is something which is already done, then don't do this more. So these are two things that I always remember.
Right, right. And talking about teachers, Sridhar, you also mentioned about Professor Pulin Garg. And you were not in IIM Ahmedabad, as you mentioned, and he was IIM Ahmedabad professor. So how did you come across Professor Pulin Garg and what impact he's had in your development?
Well, first of all, talking about the institute identity, it is from ISISD that we came together.
Okay.
Right. So that is neither IMA, but maybe closer to IMC.
Right. That's a professional body, power of professional body. You're absolutely right. That cuts across academic.
Professor Pulin Garg and I started this between Russia and Ukraine in today's metaphor.
I see.
he would call me a corporate, stupid idiot. He would say all types of things. If I would wear shoes and take them off in front of the lab space, he would say these corporate jokers can only come in shoes, things like this. So I had to withstand, and he would push me beyond any limits of what one would say, understanding of oneself, and say, you just are making a big picture out of this. There's nothing in it. You suffer from all types of issues, insecurity, identity, a whole lot of things which I don't want to bore you with.
Right.
So he was actually, to begin with, for me, a huge demon. And he had this funny habit of having chewing pan, and he would spit the pan also. He would do this in the lab sessions. So sometimes if I was sitting next to him, I would wonder what is going to happen, so I'd keep far away. So he says, why are you afraid of me that you don't want to sit next to me? Was the next demonic statement that he made. Now, I realized, and this is my crucible in life, that I realized that a lot of what he was saying was seen by me in a very normative way. So he didn't mean to hurt, or he didn't mean to bring me down or indignify me. That is how I was looking at the book. And it dawned on me later that, look, he was looking at certain things that I was not taking ownership for.
Yeah.
And therefore, that tenet that we often disown what we need to own came through for me very strongly. So much so that I became a great fan of his. I don't know whether I was a great fan of his, but he did invite me to be the member of the body of the Executive Council of ISIC. I've been to his house several times in Ahmedabad, and I have the greatest respect and reverence for that man. And I think he made a huge, huge impact on me personally.
So that is something Sridhar and I share in common, because I have personally been heavily impacted by Professor Pullingar myself.
I mean, can I add something?
Yeah.
So Pullan was also one of the greatest teachers in my life, and he was not from Excel, so I didn't speak about that.
Yes, of course.
And again, Sridhar and I were in ISISD. So Pullan, to me, we used to have these late night sessions, and he used to start this calling in the river of life. You remember the sessions? Marathons. And he used to run for hours here. And I learned three things. One, see the unseen, hear the unsaid, and act the withheld. I mean, say things nobody says. And I will never forget Pullan. And he was absolutely in your face when he said all these things.
Yeah. So I have a long list of questions, but I just got the slip, and you know what that means.
Yes.
Right. So
I'm very happy about it.
you're very happy
About the
about
slip.
About the slip. Okay. So we would let the rest of the questions slip away.
Okay.
Right. But one final message. You both are serial authors, and you have contributed heavily in the making of this book. What are one or two messages, Sridhar, that you would like to give to the people here today?
Interesting, but a very tough question, let me confess. And particularly for somebody like me who wrote a book on how to be an HR superstar, which ran into 250 pages to say it in 2 or 3 messages. Okay. I think some of which you covered in Viji's session. I think first of all, to HR, I would say be driven by a sense of purpose in terms of what you want to deliver, what you want to give, and being like what Nathan said, self should come later than service. So I think that's very important. And the second thing that you touched upon in your response, Arvind, was employee connectedness. We tend to be in HR very insular and focused on functionality and so on and so forth, and our connect with people is very limited. I think that's where everything of a business rests. The third thing I would say, and I'll stop it there, is being business aware. Most HR people, I'm sorry to say this, are not even aware of what the company's revenue will be, or what does EBITDA mean, they have no idea at all. So I think this is very dangerous. And I think people should become more understanding of business, perhaps be more immersive, as you mentioned, Arvind, in terms of having a business role.
Thank you.
So those would be my messages.
Thank you, Sridhar. And equally, Nathan, what is your message to the people here today, this evening?
Is this about the book that I've written?
Not about the book you've written, but from the book where you contributed.
Okay.
Yeah. And the thunder of your book is yet to be unleashed. And so that we will come to at another moment.
So I just think that all of us have a story waiting to be told, each one of us. And it is important for us to say that story. This is the first thing. All of us have a story.
Yeah.
And sometimes we discount ourselves. I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not good enough. So I don't think there is any need for us to do that. All of us have a story waiting to be told. Second, data in itself is not at all, I mean, data is worth, actually they say data is oil and all that. Personal data is worth nothing. So you can go ahead and easily share all that. Your person, whatever that happened, the moment you share, you let the person know that the other person really cares. So in the, maybe the 8 hours, 10 hours that we spent, the fact that somebody listened to you told me that somebody cared for me and my story. That's a second thing that I learned. And the third one is, in writing, doing whatever that you did, Arvindji and of course Professor Rao, it's a lot of grunt work. And as much as you think you're doing something, there is somebody else who's doing a lot more than what you're doing. So have respect for that. So that's the third thing I would say. I learned a lot about respect.
Right. Well, thank you so much. And, both of you have worked for Indian companies, multinationals. You've had best of education that anyone can dream of in this country. And what I found in your stories, that places where you worked, you had to make a space for yourself. It was not handed out on a platter. You had to make a space. And secondly, I also found that you were deeply convinced about your values and you stood by that. Whether it was dealing with the union leader, whether it was dealing with the tough boss, whether it was developing talent, right across the whole gamut of things that you were doing through your life, you were standing by your conviction. And I think that's...
Arvindji, if I can just, something that you said evoked is very evocative. I think when you talked about experiences, whether you're working in a multinational, which I've been doing for a long time, and half my life is working in Indian companies. First of all, it doesn't matter whether you work in a multinational or you work in an Indian company. It just does not matter as HR professionals. What multinationals do is they take, I would believe, they would take extraordinary people, and many a time they falter at the altar. They don't get the best of results. They could do much more. But Indian companies take, let's say, the so-called very ordinary people and get extraordinary results out of them, which is my learning from all of this book and working is it's all about getting the best out of yourself and others.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Sridhar. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Agrawal. I think it's been a fabulous session. Sorry for being the bad guy. I have to have the nasty job of keeping time. Otherwise, I think we could have carried on for hours together. Wonderful discussion, a lot more insights about the book and the HR profession as such. So moving on, now I think we'll have just take 1 or 2 questions. Yeah, there's this gentleman who's been wanting to ask you a question. May I have someone to give the mic, please? So keep the question short. We also have about 360 viewers watching this program online, and we have some questions, but I don't think we have enough time for questions. I'll give you the chance.
Excuse me. Hello. I won't say two questions, but I want to ask you two issues. In the sense, in all the HR professionals, and also you are talking about the book and learning from others, from peers, from teachers, from bosses, and all this. What about introspective thinking? Have you covered in that book? That is, India is famous for introspective thinking, and it is a powerful method and tool of developing one's leadership quality. Have you mentioned or have you pondered over those things? That's one thing. And second thing is, what our country needs is leaders in the making. Crucible and all these things you are telling. But what we require is leaders, not in the making. Because already, see, for the past 150 years, we have produced only one Gandhi. One Gandhi. How many Gandhi? Gandhi, I attribute good leadership qualities because of high level of introspective thinking. That is why he became so powerful. So that type of thinking and leaders must have been there. How quickly you can develop?
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. We got your question. Dr. Arvind, would you like to take that?
The first question I didn't really understand. Sridhar, you have a sense of that?
He has asked you whether have you covered anything in the book which talks about one's own introspection.
Introspection.
Introspective thinking.
Well, you would find all the 30 HR leaders, they're highly introspective in terms of reflection of self, connected with their values, right through. In every moment of difficulty, they have connected with themselves and played out. In fact, one particular instance I like to quote, one example, and since it's in the book, I don't mind mentioning Mr. Rajiv Dubey, who was managing director of Rallies. And he had variance of views along with the board, because of which he left Rallies. That was very, very difficult moment for him. And he turned to his father, who told him that, look, whatever happens, whether good or bad, you are just one factor. There are several other factors which come together to deliver good or bad. So you should display equanimity. You should not feel excited when something good has happened, because it's not just you. There are many others who have contributed to that great thing. Equally, you should not drown yourself in sorrow just because something has gone wrong. So he quoted his father, Rajiv Dubey's father, quoted from Gita. And believe you me, when I was sitting in Rajiv Dubey's office for having this conversation, he dived into his office bag. He pulled out that Gita and he showed me the underlining done by his father. And this was several years after the incidents had happened, because Rajiv was telling me that this Gita in my bag is a constant companion for me. So you would find all of these 30 HR leaders, they were very mindful of their own emotions, and they were displaying equanimity in all circumstances. So that was the response to your first question. And the second one was the leaders in the making. And a lot of people had trouble with this particular title, because they said you covered people who are already legends, they're leaders. So how come you say leaders in the making? They're not in the making, they've already been made. But the content of the book is about the process through which they were made. So that is why leaders in the making. And I hope we've covered only 30 HR leaders, but there are hundreds others out there who are also leaders. And there's a leader in each one of us which need to be unleashed, which is why I say that if you claim your space, stay with your value, and work with your conviction, that's leadership. You will make a difference in lives of others.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Agrawal. So I think that's all the time we have today, though I know many of you may want to ask questions. The best answer to all those questions that you have is the book is available. Kindly read the book and you'll get all the answers that you want. So may now request Dr. Raghavi. She is Secretary ISTD Chennai chapter. She calls herself sociopreneur, an L&D specialist and an inclusion evangelist. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to Dr. Raghavi. So she will be delivering the concluding remarks before we move on to the word of thanks. A very inspirational HR person, Raghavi, very, very passionate about what she does. So thank you, Raghavi, for joining us this evening. Please give her a mic so that she can.
A very good evening, one and all. Yeah, so I'm taking the opportunity of concluding this beautiful evening. So yes, Miss Vijay made us to sail through a cruise to give us a crux by making all of us the crusaders of these crucibles of change makers in HR. And as part of the HR fraternity and me being with a big passion of, from the HR, the fields of HR and all that, I'm personally addicted to these two words, leadership and transformation. And I've been noting so many good points from this session, yeah. And leaders make themselves and leaders make leaders, yeah. And it takes so much to become a leader, the values, the integrity, transformation, change making, and Professor Rao said the octopus thing, so whatnot. And this book gives us a 360-degree dimension to become a leader, to make leaders, from family, from the college, from the workplace, from the society by and large. That's my key takeaway. Huge thanks to Dr. Arvind and Dr. Rao for being the human library. For being the human library for all of us, with two stories of Mr. Sridhar and Mr. Nathan, who are again two huge books by themselves here. And I personally take great excitement to have met Dr. Arvind this evening. And yes, I had the privilege of meeting Dr. Rao this September in our earlier event. And so let me conclude with one cue that I picked from Ms. Vijay, that there were two women's stories from the 30 stories in the book. So we really look forward for Leaders in the Making 2.0 with more women leaders or all women leaders. And I think that will be a big inspiration for the upcoming generation. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Raghavi. I think when you write the book, all these women leaders will be there in that book. There are many of them here. So moving on, before we come to the word of thanks, we have the pleasant duty of honoring the distinguished speakers. Like Raghavi said, all leaders are readers. Raghavi, please stay on. Please stay on, please stay on. Please stay on, please stay on. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, may I now request some people more to join us on the dais to honor the dignitaries today. Mr. Srinivas Bharti, MD and CEO, Adrenalin Systems Limited. May I request you to join us on the dais, sir. Thank you for making this, partnering us this event. May I request Mr. Lionel David, Mr. Surya Prakash, committee member, MMA, Mr. Matthew, Honorary Secretary, NIPM, Mr. Raja, who's the Secretary National NIPM, Mr. Rajendran, President NIPM Chennai chapter, Mr. Chandru, who's also the EC member, NIPM National, and we have Mr. Ratesh, who's also a committee member. So a whole lot of people here to thank you all here. May I request Raghavi, please, yeah. So leaders are all readers, so we are giving you more books to read. So thank you. May I request the first book to be given by, yeah, please, all of you, please go that side. Let's join her. Raghavi, you could hand over the book to Mr. Arvind Agrawal, please. And Mr. David, may I request you to hand over the book to Ms. Surya Prakash. Ms. Vijay Lakshmi, may I request you to join us on the dais, please. David, you could hand over the book to Mr. Nathan. Mr. Rajendran, may I request you to hand over the book to Ms. Rajeshwari, please. Ms. Vijay Lakshmi, sorry. Ma'am, please. Thank you, Ms. Vijay Lakshmi, for joining us. And we request Mr. Matthew to hand over the book to Mr. Sridhar Ganesh. So thank you all the NIPM and NHRD office bearers and all our committee members who joined us on the dais. So may I request all of you to stand for a photo op, please. So please come on. You can stand there. So for delivering the vote of thanks, may now request Mr. Matthew Gunaseelan, who is Secretary NIPM Madras Chapter and Vice President HR Indo National Limited.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to be here at the dais to thank you all. First of all, I am here representing MMA, NHRD, ISTD, and the NIPM Chennai chapters to thank you all. First of all, I like to extend my gratitude to Dr. Arvind Agrawal and DV Rao for giving us the opportunity to host this session and do the book review along with all the forums. I also thank Ms. Vijay Lakshmi for leading the discussion along with Dr. Arvind Agrawal and sharing the experience from him, and also Sridhar Ganesh and S.V. Nathan for taking the session very lively and sharing with live examples and many examples from the books. All those indeed make us a very grateful insight from the book and with your experiences. I'm sure this will help all of us as HR professionals and other professionals to manage the UCA environment and business more effectively. I'd like to thank the supporter of this program, Adonil E-System Limited, to host this program. And I'd like to thank Captain Vijay Kumar, Executive Director, MMA, Mr. Surya Prakash, Honorary Secretary of MMA, and Captain Venkat for organizing and leading this event along with all of us. And thank you, MMA, for giving the opportunity for ISTD, NHRD, and NIPM Madras chapter to be partnered with this event to organize today's evening. And I also thank all the members of all the forums and other members participating physically and virtually to be part of this session. And I'm sure all of us, this will be a wonderful evening and very insightful session. Once again, I thank you and wish the day ahead in more making HR professionals. Thank you. Good evening.
Professor Rao, thank you so much for joining us online. And ladies and gentlemen, everything good has to come to an end, and today's evening program has been fabulous. Thank you all for joining us, all those who have joined us here and all those who have joined us online. We'll catch up again during the next